Welcome to another episode of Coffee and Comics. I'm Taylor Trask. You'll notice with me today is not Todd A., but in fact Mike Marlow, who is local Denver-based actor, comedian, frequent podcast guest on other shows, and a comics fan. Hey, Mike.
Hey, happy to be here.
Welcome, welcome. We're going to do a kind of a special one-shot episode of Coffee and Comics today. Todd is back in San Diego, so I wanted to take the mic and bring in Mike.
I see what you did.
That's how we roll here.
Yeah, I like it.
We were actually, it's funny too, we've been talking about this for a little while, and then we both saw Infinity War, and we're trading some notes back and forth on Facebook, and I thought, this is a great time to bring Mr. Marlow in.
It is the comic book. I mean, what else are you talking about in comics right now in the week after Infinity War?
Well, I'm still talking about Ancestor. It's a little indie title that I really like. Actually, that is a really good title. I shouldn't joke about that in that way.
No. You just listened to me talk about Savage Dragon before we started the podcast for a good 5 minutes.
So. Oh, dude, we need to do an entire episode about Savage Dragon because that's, as we mentioned, like Todd and I are huge Image fans, and that is one of those titles. That's like the longest running Image title. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of people think, oh, Walking Dead. It's like, oh, no. 10 years before Walking Dead, Savage Dragon came out.
Mm-hmm. All by the same creator, written, drawn...
Yeah,
inked and lettered.
Really?
When things were thin, he was lettering the book.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
interesting. Mm-hmm. So give the folks at home a couple of your bona fides. I guess, like, what are you? How long have you been reading comics? What are your kind of your favorite books right now?
I was thinking about that not too long ago, and I don't think there's a time when I don't remember comics being around. My parents just gave me comics all the time. It was just a thing. You know, even scribbling on them and ripping them up and not paying attention. But so yeah, comics just go back for 36 years.
Dang.
You know, and in terms of really like reading it was around 11, 12. Mm-hmm. I think because one of the comics I'd somehow randomly had an old Alan Moore Swamp Thing.
Oh, wow.
And I loved it mainly because the story was beyond me at that point. But I loved the Steve Bissette art and the gross monsters and everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, for a 10-year-old, it was awesome. And my mom had a grad student who came over and they were doing some work, and he saw that issue, and we were talking, he's using the comics and whatever. And he's like, oh, wow, you read that stuff? Well, here's this book, Watchmen.
Oh, man.
Like, there's my 11-year-old brain is gone. Like,
wow,
it was years. I'm not going to claim I understood it.
Yeah.
But it blew my mind. The visuals, the idea, like this was unlike anything else.
Yeah.
And so from that point on, I think that was when I became just a lifelong, I'm down for this art form, whatever.
It's interesting you say that because Watchmen was actually my entry point back into comics in a big bad way. And I'll say, like, preface that by saying I was back growing up as a kid, like in the 80s, like I was a big He-Man fan, and like I'd read the mini comics there. Mm-hmm. I would pick up the occasional Batman book once in a while, and very, very mainstream stuff. Yeah. And then just kind of fell out of it, throughout the mid to late 90s and 2000s. But then when Watchmen the movie came out, I'm going to be in the minority here, but I really, really like that movie and just the execution of it. And I'm just like, well, what's the book like? Mm-hmm. Got the book and I was just like, oh my God, same thing. Like whatever, like 28-year-old version of me was just like, this is amazing. And I appreciate the book for what it is and the movie for what it is. Obviously, it's very hard to
different things.
Very different things.
Yet being for shot, word for word, very different things. And that's always what's fascinated me about the adaptation and the ability to do that. And either way, there's things in that story that carry over into that film that I think are just so iconic and so powerful and just Watchmen. That's why everyone kind of agrees on Watchmen.
Yeah, and it's amazing that you were the Swamp Thing that you were into was the Alan Moore Swamp Thing, which is usually heralded as like the Swamp Thing. Mm-hmm. Like that's the one that everybody points to.
I might even like that now. Going back and reading it, that might be my favorite Alan Moore comic.
Wow,
the Run on Swamp Thing.
Wow,
for me and I hold it in high regard. Like this wasn't when I was reading, I was like, wow, I think I really love Alan Moore's Swamp Thing more than that Watchmen or V or League or
I'm a big League fan.
Is huge.
Book one of League especially. But he's that other one that came out like the third volume of just like they go through all the different time frames and that one was really good.
Yeah. Oh, Antichrist Harry Potter.
I haven't heard of
At
this.
the end in the last volume?
No.
Where they fight pretty much the British literary Antichrist.
Yes,
and it's
yes,
the
yes, yes,
giant
yes.
Harry Potter.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've read that particular portion. So Mike's got his cred. He knows what he's talking about. So
Or fake it very well.
exactly. That's what we do
that's
here
all
sometimes too. No, but let's jump in because I wanted to chat first about Infinity War. Todd and I did a review that came out earlier this week that was kind of rambling all over the place by me, especially because my thoughts on this movie were. I loved a lot of it, and I was sort of meh about a lot of it. And it is exactly the movie that they were able to make based on all the criteria they had to go off of. So it's really hard for me to imagine another version of this movie, but at the same time, I feel like because it was trapped by those circumstances, it was lesser as a result. But that's just me. But I guess, what was your thoughts?
Yeah, the similar that they do. Are we going full spoilers?
Yes, thank you. So, like, if you're listening, once again, there's no way we can talk about this without spoiling quite a bit. So if you're one of those people who haven't yet seen Infinity War, what's wrong with you? But I understand if you've had duties, you've had a job and kids and stuff. Pause this right now, go get a babysitter, go see the movie, come back, unpause it, and then join in on the fun. So spoiler warning.
All out on this.
All out.
Just right away. First thing out of my mouth. After
3,
this point.
2, 1.
Everybody dies.
Everybody dies.
No. Everybody who wasn't an OG Avenger.
Yes.
That was the whole. So you got to look at that's the purpose structurally of this film was to get rid of everybody who wasn't in the first Avengers movie. It's back down to phase 1 now.
Yeah.
So it can be tighter. Yeah. Think about, because who's going to really, when everybody in the early deaths, Loki and Heimdall and everything happening in the beginning, you start to get that dense, they're going to start killing people and changing stuff.
Yeah.
When the guy who was just the star of the $1 billion movie that's still in theaters dies, you're like, no, they're not. Yeah, they're not getting rid of Black Panther. And I've heard this, they're going to go to another universe and do all that. No, they're not. They're going to, Nebula's still there, so she'll get the gauntlet just like she did, hopefully.
In the comic.
Yeah. That would be a nice... I like that pairing, just leaving. Like that I'm down for that in the beginning of the next movie of just Tony Stark hanging out with Nebula.
What an those are the last two people in the world I thought would have to be story-wise put together.
Right? Which is what makes it great. That's not the obvious. And Rocket's still hanging out with the Avengers, so that's a nice...
Yeah. So I guess, and I like that framing of it. It's like, it's almost like if you think about, their job, the writer's job was to go, you need to clear the slate with just the OG Avengers and maybe a couple extras, but that's, you got to get to that point. So that said, my argument with Todd was, those deaths, it was visually impressive. Again, execution was impressive. Everything was great. But for me, like, if you're going to take out the people we know there's no possible way are going to stay dead. Yeah. It doesn't, death then doesn't mean as much. And the other side of that is the MacGuffin in this movie is like the greatest MacGuffin of all time. Yeah. It can literally rewrite and undo anything you want it to do. So I felt, as I was leaving the theater, like, seeing all that happen was very interesting. But my mind just went, clearly that's all coming back. Like, this is almost, it's less these people died and more, this is a placeholder so we can get to the next movie. How do you think... I guess what for you in the next one, what would be the payoff that would make all of that just work really, really well for you?
Ooh, good question. Well, and also first, I think we should separate the fact that we're jaded movie-going comic fans and we can see this
is
and
true.
Just pay much to the fact that there's a lot of messed up 8 to 10-year-olds right now.
That's a good point.
People who don't know this and their parents don't know to tell them, they'll all come back to life.
Because
they're not familiar with how this works.
This is the Doctor Who problem. Adults watch Doctor Who and we expect all these meaty things and it's like, look, there's a whole other audience over here that we got to talk about too.
Thinking about who are, so for them it's very real. And that's kind of a great, this is, going to be like a simple childhood moment of watching Spider-Man cry and turn to dust and float away.
Yeah, that is a great point.
I wish they had hit a little bit more that after he did it, the gauntlet kind of broke.
It did, but it didn't because he immediately used it to teleport back to,
Yeah, exactly. But if they had really hit on that, and he used it and it's busted.
Yeah.
So that's, how do we get back to making that work again? But it's just going to be now, hopefully... we can get something exciting for Captain America and Black Widow to do because they were real non-entities.
They barely said anything.
No,
I actually went. It was funny. I mentioned this on the last episode too. I was sitting next to two guys, and you could kind of tell we were all a little fidgety. And I had foolishly drank too much liquids ahead of the time, and I was waiting for him. I'm like, I gotta go pee. I can't hold this another hour. So we were waiting. And that moment when they they all roll up at Adventures headquarters, and Don Cheadle's like, "Hey, how you doing?" All of us at the same time busted out of there. Like we're like, this is the moment. And so I missed any, like, that was the only moment where I think like any possible dialogue with Black Widow and Steve was.
And I can't say that was a memorable. They kind of just talked to Don Cheadle for a bit, established what they're up to, and went and did more stuff. I think the movie worked the more ridiculous it got. I mean, for me, the highlight was Peter Dinklage and the Forge made out of the star, and that's when you're getting full Marvel, goofy, cosmic, and we're just and it's a
hold
talking
on,
raccoon.
boy.
Yeah, talking about chewing scenery, like having the most fun. Peter Dinklage, because he was the last comic movie he was in, he was so dour and serious.
Yeah.
And he did a good job in X-Men.
Boulevard Trask.
Yeah, building the Sentinels.
Uncle Boulevard, as I like to call him. Uncle Bully. I liked that scene though a lot because I'm like, everybody I think had agreed that he was going to be Pip the Troll.
Yeah.
In this because Pip was a character in the original Infinity Gauntlet book, and there had been some shots of him with red hair, and I was kind of like, really? You're going to make the dwarf like that just doesn't quite work out.
See, and I treated myself by actually ignoring all that stuff, so I had
Good
that was
call.
a total surprise.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Like, oh, hey, surprise Lannister, and he's
So you didn't even know he was going to be in
nope,
it?
Had no idea. I really backed off on this one just to kind of let it. You know, when you get to that point where you can kind of figure out the entire film from who's in what's.
And I'll make a confession. And again, this is a repeat, but I had to look at the ending to see if Thanos assembled the gauntlet because here's my problem. I try to write things, you know, I'm a writer, you know, quotation marks, heavy quotation marks. But when I go into a film, like usually I'm trying to like in my mind go, okay, there's this, and this. Every so often I get dropped into something like Kingsman, which is just so batshit. You're just like, wow, what? And you just you're in the ride. But for a lot of it, I'm like, okay, in all these promotional, you know, pieces, he's just got 2 stones. Cleverly, they CGI'd out the other one. So all those scenes and shots where he's got just the blue and the purple one, the power and the space stone, he had a bunch of other ones there too. So that was kind of cool on the marketing side. But I had to know, I'm like, does this movie end with him just getting 2 stones? And then it's just like, well, I'll see you next time, Avengers. Haha. And so I didn't want that. I wanted it to end very much the way it ended with him winning. Like #Thanos wins is sort of the mantra. So I had to check ahead. But knowing that, I didn't have to sit there and like write in my head like, okay, he's got 3. There's only 20 minutes left in the movie. Let's see. You know, that's because then we're back in Lost territory, which you know that's the entire last season of Lost was that. So I checked at the end, but you went in. How pure did you go in?
I watched a couple trailers.
Okay.
So I fell for they did that nice misdirection with the Hulk.
Yeah,
They stuck
that's
him
right.
in Wakanda.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I was like, that's smart. They purposely took the time to CG a few frames of trailer.
Yeah.
Just to throw that, because they know people are picking them over that fine.
Yeah.
And speculating on everything. So even the littlest bit of misdirection.
Yeah.
And hid an entire pretty good plot point.
Yeah.
Of, Hulk's ED. He's got some performance issues.
Yeah.
Poor Hulk.
Yeah.
So they just give him a suit. I just love that too. Like, you're qualified to do this, I guess.
And he just trips and stumbles, and like he does his thing. I guess on that same note, what was your favorite character? And it could be a character and moment, or just either way. What was, if you had to pick one, or if you wanted to cheat and do 1 or 2, that's fine too.
In theory, Peter Dinklage made the joke. Doctor Strange's cape was the best character in Doctor Strange, and still stood out. Just giving some all-stars. Yeah, Peter, that was just delightful in that whole thing. I gotta say the Thanos Gamora stuff was my favorite. Toss a coin between the 2 of them, because that was the actual emotional brief arc in the film.
Did you like the way that Thanos was portrayed in this? Because it seemed a little. If you go back through the early comics, now the newer Thanos comic is a little bit more gives him more depth. But those early ones, he's more just like it's always like the smiling like ah.
Yeah.
And this is way more nuanced. Like Brolin made him like a real guy.
Yeah, he had. It was tricky because I was thinking about it that this is so comic book nitpicky. But in the he's motivated. Comic book Thanos is in love with death. He's got a crush on an actual death that exists. So, killing people seems to be a good way to follow in on that goal.
Yeah.
So this Thanos is all about the balance and everything. And, all I was thinking is like, well, if you become God and you're doing it for a balance, or you're worried about resources being depleted in the universe, just make more stuff.
I never thought about
twice
that.
as much stuff. Like I said, super comic book nitpicky dumb. So and then with that, he becomes. But then you can also kind of accept that that never occurs to him, and just what an absolutely terrifying psychopath he is.
Yeah.
Who's reasonably he's rationalizing this genocidal campaign to himself. He just wants to kill a bunch of people.
Yeah.
This is a dude who boxes with the Hulk for fun. I love Thor and the Hulk get wharfed. Immediately, which is a big thing. Talk about setting the stakes for your threat. Here's your two strongest guys, and they're just owned. They're done.
Yeah.
So now here's a Chris Evans, Hemsworth. I'm trying to make sure I got the right Chris. So Captain America. Just now it's the Hulk just got his ass kicked. So now it's an unwashed hobo who doesn't even have a shield anymore.
That's true.
He's our last line of defense.
Yeah.
I love that they had the big army battle guy thing.
Yeah.
But this was the first time in a Marvel movie where it's been a bunch of people versus one large villain.
Yeah.
They're usually taking out the army, and I've been waiting for that when it came down to it.
Yeah.
And everyone just desperately throwing themselves at him.
Yeah.
One by one. And, that was just I've waited for that powerful, the team.
And it's
one entity. Not an army of guys.
And it was everybody too. Like he started on Titan. All those guys, had their chance, came to Earth. All those guys had their chance. Yeah. I mentioned this on Facebook too. Even with more time, I'm even harder on this thought. Mm-hmm. I really, really, really wish there's a way to get more movie with Ebony Maw as the main bad guy.
Great.
As soon as, because he's one of the first outside of the the distress call from the Asgardian ship, he's one of the first voices you hear, and it's just this and you see him in the trailers. You see the CGI, which is really good, by the way, for that Black Order. That Black Order CGI was amazing.
Everyone,
but you get this and now you shall be part of the Thanos experience, and you're just what is this voice? Mm-hmm. What is this kind of creepy, high pitched, possibly pedophile voice that you're hearing? And then you see it's that guy, and it's just his gesticulation and just the way he carries himself, and he's not a big brute, and he's not skilled with weapon. He's just kind of this almost this Goebbels looking guy who can do basically anything with his mind, and it works so well. It was one of a couple moments in the movie where I'm no, let's just make this the movie and follow this guy and just see what he's up to.
Okay, going to the other big superhero jam-up team from the last year, the Justice League.
Yeah.
Which the original plan was Steppenwolf's the bad guy, and then Darkseid's the next one.
Yeah.
It was terrible, and it might not happen. And think about how much better Ebony Maw could have carried a movie.
Yeah.
And the Black Order could have been that setup. You could have gotten a whole movie out of those bad guys if you were to do it that way and set up.
Yeah.
So even Marvel in 5 minutes did better with a general concept.
Yes. DC's probably just God damn it! Again!
Why? We got Wonder Woman right, and that was it. And we kind of stumble backwards into Batman being successful every once in a while. That's and then it's Steppenwolf, because who doesn't love that? And
I mean, props to Ciarán Hinds or Ciarán Hinds, who's that dude's awesome, but it's just even he did a performance, and what they did with Josh Brolin and Thanos was 20 times better in terms of the mocap and everything. Just it's that Marvel machine. I mean, you got it. If anything, this movie was just a celebration of how perfect that machine is at this point. My problems with the movie kind of result in that being a machine, but as a machine, it's just every element is just the sea, except for that one part at the very, very end where Ruffalo's standing there in the Hulkbuster suit, and it looks just like he's CGI'd into that thing. He's hey guys, it's just it looks so bad. It was
especially because it was such a heavy moment.
Yes, and then here's this horribly pixelated,
just sticking out of this big armor, looking sad.
Oh, it was terrible, and I'm just it had to be that Marvel's we're gonna release it a week earlier. Can you guys finish on time? No. Well, we're gonna do it anyway because what I think a lot of people who watch movies don't realize, oftentimes the movie is still being worked on 2 days before it goes to theaters, and they just do either a digital distribution or a fast print rollout. But like there are people working like to the final minute that thing comes out.
And
so
that was the last thing in the last week.
Yeah.
They had that week, they would have gotten it too.
Yeah, that's all right. It's all good. What I guess, is there anything anything that bothered you, or was just the whole thing just an awesome celebration of Marvel that you were hoping for?
I mean, yeah, it bothered me in the sense that it wasn't a story. I mean, it was this collection of just action scene, and there were times when the punching got. And I like punching. I'm not here to be like, oh, those mindless smash. Then go watch a Merchant Ivory movie. Those are great too.
Oh, yeah.
There's great dramas you can watch. But if I want to watch people in costumes punch each other, I still want to see that. But it got like the Thor bit I loved because it was a big epic spectacle thing that wasn't an action scene. But at least it was a breakup of like something different. That was especially the non-entity stuff with Cap and Black Widow, who are focus of Winter Soldier is great.
Yeah.
So, and the Cap movies, like, so they can be great.
Yeah.
And hopefully they get their, obviously they're going to get the focus next year. Yeah. But that was just their kind of non-entity status was the only thing that, and their sacrifices, because I thought about how much Thor went from kind of my least favorite for the first couple movies, and he was okay and quippy in the Joss Whedon ones. Mm-hmm. But through Ragnarok and this, Thor's like my favorite of the cinematic Avengers now.
Isn't that amazing?
That's shocking how in 2 films.
Yeah. Poor Hemsworth's just like, I told you guys if I could just be funny. Let me.
And he had the best, I think, outside of the Gamora stuff, of the main characters, kind of dramatic, that weary, I'm 1,500 years old. Yeah. But I kick ass and that's what I do. So time to go do it some more. And he had in the stuff with Rocket was really nice. Yeah. Actually, surprisingly enjoyable.
Worked really well.
It was a good pairing. But going into Ragnarok too, thing bugging the hell out of me. Where's Korg?
Where's Korg and where is
Valkyrie?
Where's Tessa Thompson?
She's doing Janelle Monáe videos and fantastic, and they're awesome. Good for them. Watch if you haven't been like keeping up with the Janelle Monáe videos. You should all be doing that because she's just on point right now.
I've heard.
Yeah, and they have Tessa Thompson in them. That's what she's doing.
Wow.
Not making Infinity War, hanging out with Janelle Monáe and cool music videos.
I've asked this a few times. The only explanation I can get is that there's a throwaway line where Thor's like, half my people escaped.
Yeah. And
I'm like, well, but that's how and when and under what circumstances and
lampshade.
Exactly.
Wave.
Exactly. Do you think Loki's dead for good?
It depends on contract negotiations. Let's be really honest about that.
Hiddleston's like, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if he wants to keep doing it or not, that's really what it comes down to. Because anyone can come back at this point. Yeah. I'd imagine Gamora would have to come back, especially. Maybe not the early deaths, but definitely her. And
Heimdall's gone. Yeah. Like, I think I made
Spider-Man 2 comes out a month after the next Avengers, by the way. That's spoiler.
Yeah.
Are they going to show trailers? Is it just like the trailers? Are they just going to be people being really sad? I was also wondering, too, next month, Ant-Man and the Wasp better take place before this, or it's going to be 2 hours of them just sobbing uncontrolled. Half the world died, and we've got feelings about this.
But onwards and upwards, we gotta steal some stuff.
Yeah, all the trailers are misleading. It's this really sober drama as they confront the massive.
One of the things, and this is like that terrible thing you shouldn't do, which is write your own version of the movie. But like one of the things I was thinking, because that was my question too. I'm like, okay, how does Ant-Man and the Wasp factor into this? And my thought was, well, maybe in an Infinity War, Thanos does this. He snaps his fingers, but he basically creates another reality where nobody realizes that half the universe is missing, and Ant-Man and the Wasp just exists like they are like, hey, we're 2 of 5 heroes left. Like they just don't realize that the universe could be bigger and better, and everybody's got kind of this like temporary amnesia about what could have been, except for like doctors. Assuming that Doctor Strange or somebody would have lived who would have maybe had some tangential connection to the old universe. Clearly that didn't happen, so it's got to be a
especially and the post-credit scene really drives that home.
Yeah.
And then they let's call Brie Larson.
Okay, see, my only problem with that, though, is that where was she? I hope that her movie gives a good, solid explanation about why she couldn't just have shown up, at the first battle for New York, or anytime something bigger than, Tony Stark can handle has happened. Like, where was she this whole time? Why only now can you use this old school pager?
They'll have to answer that one.
In
some way. All the machine, like you said, I'm sure they've thought this out.
Yeah.
Had many, many meetings.
Yeah. Kevin Feige's like, no, there's a plan. Kevin Feige at this point is like a showrunner. I mean, I keep kind of comparing, in my world, these aren't movies so much as like really freaking badass episodes of a really like a 10-year long TV show.
Good way to look at it.
And Kevin Feige's the showrunner. Like he may not write everything, but he's got the board with all the cards, and they're like, okay, this character's got to be here and then here. So just like when you kind of think about it, and if you've ever done those like they did this time I think they did every single Marvel movie, but if you do those marathons, they do kind of line up in a nice little way.
Mm-hmm. And I love that they're seeing the returns for betting on the right creators.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sad the Edgar Wright thing didn't work out, but that's it. But still, James Gunn, now they're going to be like, here's a bunch of money. Write your script, do your thing. We trust you. The Russo brothers, you guys got this. So here's your money, do your thing. Joss Whedon, come mea culpa, come on back.
Come
Sorry,
on back, man.
Things didn't work out, but I guess you're back now. We don't want you at DC.
Yeah.
Possibly writing that ship. Although I don't know if anything can.
Yeah.
Who else? And then, Taika
Waititi.
Yeah, here we go. Oh, that's so bad. And he's so funny and so gifted. And I'm a white guy who can't say his name.
I love what he did with Ragnarok, but honestly, I want them, and it's funny because Ryan Reynolds just today said if they do a Deadpool 3, he wants like no budget. He wants it to be like the most just challenging. Like, this is something you'll see at like an indie festival in your hometown. He wants it.
He follows the Dog Me 95.
Yes. Oh my God.
Let's do it.
But I bring that up because like I would love Taika Waititi to have something to do in the Marvel universe, or maybe the next Thor movie is like as low budget as What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah. Because that movie to me is like, I mean, you take all the Flight of the Conchords stuff and it just kind of rolls right into that. And I haven't seen the Wilder People movie that he did with Sam Neill.
It's delightful.
Is it?
It's one that anytime that's watch it. It's great. It's why I was more excited for Thor than even the trailers, because that film is just a winner.
Excellent.
That was the one where What We Do in the Shadows shows he can make a good comedy. Hunt for the Wilder People this guy is a talented dude who can make a delightful movie.
Wow.
So everyone listening, if you haven't seen Hunt for the Wilder People,
go find it.
Yes.
Is it fun? Is it funny? Is it a comedy or is it a drama?
Mostly.
Okay.
But the dramatic beats hit very, very well.
Nice.
And it's mostly just a weird, odd mismatched characters in an unusual situation. Pretty straightforward stuff, but just told in the best way possible.
Docu-style?
No.
Just regular, straightforward. Nice. Mm-hmm. Good. I like that because I get why people do the docu-style. Like, obviously, Christopher Guest has had a good run of it. Yeah. And it's an easier format to because you let the editing drive the comedy, and that's, in that docu-style, you can control the beats. But with a drama, it's a little, more of a dramatic regular flow movie. You got to the script has got to be solid. And you can't rely so much on the improv of the actors and all that good stuff.
So to tie back to Infinity War,
yes,
which structurally is a giant climax.
Yeah,
it's a series of climax. That's the thing. It doesn't follow this real traditional 3-act structure.
Yeah,
it's a series of Actually, the comic I kept thinking of the most when I was reading or watching it was Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Oh.
This is the first time we've seen that on screen, just like Crisis was the first time that really happened in a comic of this massive universe-altering event, and so much is happening, and it's so big and so epic. And it's just topping itself constantly.
Yeah.
You read the original Crisis recently?
Not for a while.
Which is the most overblown, and I love it. It's so melodramatic, and everything is just, the stakes are nonstop high. We're going to 11 every single time, and everything's epic, and everything's overblown. And read Crisis, people. It's a beautiful thing.
That's a good comparison point,
I still think modern crossovers could learn something from that. If you're going to do it, make it huge.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think, just to get off the beaten path just for a moment, why do you think the DC TV universe seems to get all this, but the movie universe does not?
fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
These are people in costumes fighting crime, and the TV shows have a sense of fun.
Yeah.
When they hit and they're dramatic and they're good, they can still elicit emotion and tell a compelling story, but they understand that inherently, especially DC, has this charming goofiness underneath it all that I think it's lost so much. And it's always I want a goofy DC comic. Why I'm worried now. Segueing away to Bendis playing Superman.
For those who don't know, give it a quick update about this.
Brian Michael Bendis, who was a long-term Marvel in-house guy. Pretty much, really an architect, one of the major architects of the last 15 years of the Marvel Universe as a whole. He wrote all the major House of M through Siege, all those crossovers. He was the architect, so he got the No More Mutants. He was the one that put Norman Osborn in charge.
Oh, wow.
Like, these were all his storytelling. He wrote the Avengers and the X-Men, turned Cyclops into the Magneto quasi-villain, and wrote Ultimate Spider-Man, the entire run. Was another Bendis. Created Jessica Jones for you Marvel fans.
Really?
Wrote Alias. I still think that's his best Marvel
Wow.
work.
I didn't realize he created that character.
Yeah, Jessica Jones is a Bendis creation, and I think still. So I have mixed feelings, because when I like Bendis comics, I really like Bendis comics. That's a few Bendis comics. Right now, Taylor's scrolling through the list of Wikipedia, and we're looking at this massive output of work, and not
it's like
much of it's
every
good.
title.
For you Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, he created Quake.
Oh, geez.
Who was his pet. Bendis has this real issue where really compelling concepts and beginnings to the story, real muddy middles, and then it falls flat at the end.
Okay.
He's a great starter. What was it? Secret Invasion, which was, people are secretly Skrulls, and who's a Skrull and who's not and everything. And then they fight the Skrulls, and then Thor literally shows up and swings his hammer around, and they win. But not really, because the Wasp kind of dies, so it's sad. A lot of superheroes sitting around talking about what a bummer it is to be a superhero is a theme he seems to repeatedly hit that drives me up the wall. But then again, he has his powers when he's in his own universe. The further away he gets from established stuff, because he also doesn't tend to respect other writers' stuff. He took over Guardians of the Galaxy, and literally in his first issue, it was the movie Guardians, which, if you've been reading the book, Drax was dead, all this stuff, he's back, everything just happened. And they never, someone else will figure that out if they want to.
Yeah.
So I have very mixed feelings, because he's since left Marvel and has taken an exclusive contract with DC, and they're starting him off with Superman. And Action Comics 1000, that came out, that was his first in the, did you read that?
Not yet.
So the last story, it's mostly short stories in 1000 by various creators. Kurt Swan, Dan Jurgens are the only two. Louis Simonson, some of the notable Superman creators. And then it ends with the first Bendis story, which is kind of a generic, ugly-looking alien bad guy comes and punches Superman. He's like, I blew up Krypton. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, wow. And that's supposed to be the first story of the new continuity that he's running?
Or that he's taking over for this. They brought Superman's red underwear back. He hasn't had that in a while.
Oh, yeah.
And typical to a Bendis book, a whole page is dedicated to two side characters, civilians on the street watching this fight who are I'm glad he's got the underwear. No, I think it looks dumb. No, I think he doesn't look right without the red underwear. Well, I don't know. And it's just that, Bendis. The dialogue's good. The delivery of the concept's good, but it's I get what you're doing, but you turn two panels and he's very decompressed.
Oh, okay.
In the mid-2000s, when comics really embraced decompressed storytelling, and it would take 6 issues for one thing to happen.
That's like Dragon Ball Z.
He was, manga. They stole from manga. We're dragging this out. He was a particularly bad about that.
So you're not as excited about him having his hands on Superman?
No, because I really love Superman.
So, okay, on that note, I make no qualms about loving Superman American Alien, that short run that they did a couple, I think 2 years ago, a year ago.
Yeah.
Did you sample that at all?
I did. It wasn't. I mean, I hold All-Star Superman.
That's kind of
the
your
pinnacle.
Okay.
That to me is kind of, at least what Superman's about to me is in that book. But American Alien still had some interesting stuff to it. I would have to go back and give it a reread. I can say, I guess the biggest thing about it is it didn't like super stand out, but it wasn't. I've read some bad Superman stories, and it was definitely, I would say, upper middle of the pack.
I liked it. The reason I loved it so much is because for the longest time, I as just a regular reader and fan, could never truly just get into Superman. I understand why he's important. I understand, he is the prototype for so much that has come since then. But I just could never, it never worked for me for some reason until American Alien, because it's like, that was the first time that it's like, oh, these are all the beats in his life. And for those of you who don't know, the story, it's now collected in an amazing graphic novel, but came out in separate issues. Each issue has a completely different artist. Nick Dragotta does the first one when he's a young boy, and it goes up, I think there's like 4 or 5 issues, but each one focuses on a different chapter of his life. He's a young boy, he's a early teenager, college kid, young adult, and it ends with him in the final Superman costume. But along the way, you get to see all his doubt and like how he kind of pieces it together. He puts his, kind of the first, the beta or the alpha even version of the Superman costume or persona. And you get to see along the way, like he's just this imperfect guy trying to figure out his place in the world as an orphan, as an alien, and all that stuff. And it was the first time that it made me go, oh, this is the guy. So then now I can go back and reread all, like All-Star and all these other books and go, this is how this is him getting up to that point. This is the character. This is how he became that character. I love that.
Yeah, to me, the best Superman stories, the ones I love the most, and I just don't think it's a Bendis thing to tell this, and not a lot of people do. But yeah, the idea of like a god who wants to be a guy. Like Clark Kent's who he is. If he had his way, he'd just be hanging out. He'd write for the newspaper, do whatever. He can do whatever he wants, but he has a job. He goes and pays his rent legitimately. That's always fascinating. I love that when it hits on. It's just a good, simple morality story of the responsibility of power. Something great power, great responsibility. I don't know. That ring a bell. But yeah, this idea of he just would rather, but he's got to because he's Superman, so he's got to go help people out and try to do the best he can. And that idea, that juxtaposition of God just wanting to hang out and be chill and not taking any kind of sadistic pleasure with his power. There's always, I'm so over the, what if Superman was bad? Well, what if someone told a different story, man? Like,
so you're not an Injustice fan, I take it.
No, I mean, it's not a bad idea. It's just like, it's been done, bro. We got it. There's like, everyone's had their Superman goes bad story. And even Bendis wrote one in Powers. That was.
Have they ever done a Wonder Woman goes bad story? That's not an alternate timeline. If she never left Themyscira. This is what, because I've seen that a few times. But like just
I guess
just
like Flashpoint would be the closest. Last I remember for an evil Wonder Woman, where they've got Superwoman in the Crime Syndicate. They're evil. Yeah, they've got a super evil Wonder Woman. And
the other time I've seen it is in Multiversity. It wasn't Diana. It was another woman from Themyscira. She's part of the Nazi Justice League. I forget what they call it. She's like Broomhilda or something like that. She's got like the so that it fit, but it was like someone else from Themyscira.
Marvel's Valkyrie.
Yeah. I definitely want to talk to you though about this is Coffee and Comics too, so I want to talk about what books you're reading, and specifically you are a big fan of Saga.
I am a huge Saga's probably that's what I call my top of the stack book.
Got it.
No matter when I get my books, that's Saga's top of the stack.
That's
when
your
Saga
East of West.
Out. Yeah. East to West, since they come out in separate weeks, usually East to West is the top of the stack. Excellent. But if they came in the same week, Saga would have to go
first.
Yep.
So pitch it, because I have always kept my eye on it. I know Todd is a big fan of it. We've chatted about it on a couple episodes in the past here and there. But I guess for me and for those listening, give me your pretend you're working at a store, at a comic shop. What would be your pitch to get me into this book?
So really fantastical sci-fi that you've never seen before, and really taking a very familiar concept, but then creating a world of just outlandish and outrageous and amazing things, but then with really grounded, human, relatable characters.
Got it.
Very, very simple. It's star-crossed lovers. There's a war between a planet and its own moon.
Okay.
And on the planet, there's people with wings who use technology. And on the moon, there's people with horns who use magic. And their conflict has gotten so big that the entire galaxy is a proxy war.
Wow.
Everyone's got a side. This is the defining thing for everybody. Trillions and trillions of life forms. And it's gone on so long they don't even know what it's about anymore.
Wow.
It's just become this thing. This conflict will never end. These sides hate each other forever. Lady with wings from the planet falls in love with dude with the horns, and they make a baby.
Okay.
And they're on the run with their baby that could change everything.
Got it.
Who narrates the story?
Oh, from like
Like
Wonder Years
her,
style?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they meet any number of fantastic characters. Prince Robot right there, the robot people with kind of retro TV monitors.
Oh, so that's a real character.
Yeah,
I didn't know if
that's
some
a
of these are
reoccurring-
just like concept covers just for the fun of it, or if they're actually real things.
For your Dragon Ball Z fans, that's the Vegeta of this particular narrative.
Interesting.
He's the very Prince Robot the Fourth.
That's his actual name?
That's his actual name.
Wow.
Of the Robot Planet Dynasty.
Who's this? We're looking at the covers on imagecomics.com. This is number 47.
Prince Robot, I can say, because he's kind of a major. That's a spoiler.
That's a spoiler, okay.
That's
Okay.
we don't want to get in because, things have been going. They've done some pretty significant time jumps. As you look at these covers, you can see the amazing Fiona Staples art.
Oh, yeah.
The art.
I've been struck by that since the moment I first saw a cover. I'm like, if I ever get into this, I'll never be able to complain about the art because it's exactly my cup of tea.
It really, it's Brian K. Vaughan writing at just the height of his powers, heart of his powers. I don't know why I would go that way.
Wow.
I'm just transfixed by it as we're scrolling through images of all the Saga covers. And I remember, that issue, that's great. Lying cat, a cat that can just tell if you're lying. It can say the word lying. So if you're lying, it will just say you're lying.
Oh, wow.
That's it.
That's
sometimes
cool.
for good, sometimes for ill.
Is this as far as a story arc, is this just ongoing, or do you get a sense that there's an end game or an end point in sight that they're heading towards?
I do, just from the narration, from the setup of the narration and the style and the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, there's definitely something happens, you know, and there's been foreshadowing, and she'll narrate something, but we didn't know what this really meant till later, and then like a year later that pays off.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, and I think he's got that. Because Vaughn's done enough self-contained stories. I don't know if I've read enough. Somewhere in an interview he's probably said, I want to do 100 issues, or I want to do... it doesn't feel like it's halfway through the story at 50 issues, but maybe that's just because I want it to kind of go on forever.
I'm struck by how much Brian K. Vaughan looks like Grant Morrison.
He really does.
Look at that.
Gosh, I never thought about that.
When something Todd asked me to ask you, because I know he was into this series, he mentioned that some of the later newer trade paperbacks are more self-contained and not necessarily, part 1, 2, and 3 of a bigger arc. Do you notice that?
Yes.
Is that something you are a fan of, or does it work, I guess?
For where it is in the story right now, I think it works great. Without getting too many spoilers, but they're sort of on the run at this point and then meeting these as they're going from planet to planet, spending a little bit more time.
Okay.
But it's always been broken up fairly well. Like, he's always seemed to have it plotted out in the arcs, but I definitely get what he's noticing and it being more contained as they go from place to place. And that seems to be breaking up a little bit after issue 50. We'll see. And that's the great thing. It also has... it can be mean sometimes. It's one of those books that it can be really mean.
Wow.
It'll break your heart from time to time.
Characters you like or never safe.
Characters you like. It definitely takes that Walking Dead page of lots of things happen, and the stakes are always high. Emotionally, and the art really is. It has this wonderful... quote a coworker of mine. What's up, John, who's a comic fan, and I told him to listen to this. Said it has a dreamy quality, which is very true.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of hand-drawn and digital. I do believe that she works her backgrounds digitally, but draws all the main figures by
And
hand.
she's been the artist the entire time,
Yes.
right? They haven't
There
switched.
couldn't be another.
Okay.
Like, the world, everything. They take long breaks so
Yeah.
she can do other things or catch up. So you'll go, you'll have that 4 months here or there without some issues.
Oh,
They'll
okay.
kind of start a new arc up. Because, there couldn't be this. It's a team. It really is a 50-50 thing that makes this magical.
It's really jarring too when you have those setups. Like I'll call out specifically The Wicked and the Divine, which was I really got into, and then around volume 3, they did this experiment where they let a different artist do all the different issues, and it just didn't work at all for my taste, and it really took me out of it, and I actually had to claw my way back into it again. So I'm glad they do that. For those of you listening, if you don't know Brian K. Vaughan, the other big heavy hitter title on Image right now that he's writer of, Paper Girls. Yeah. Check that out. Are you a Paper Girl fan?
I'm not. I keep seeing. It's one of those where I pick up and I flip through issues because everyone tells me how amazing it is, and it looks amazing, and one day I'll have to get to it. But I'm behind. My other big Image book is Sex Criminals.
Oh,
read Sex Criminals.
Let's talk about that, because that's another one of those. There are a couple titles. Every time I walk into the shop, I see the cover, or I see the latest thing. I'm like, oh man, one of these days, ... And Sex Criminals is on that list too. I know the general plot, but I guess, again, for the listeners, give me a quick little down and dirty.
So Sex Criminals is people that have various unique powers related to their sexual hang-ups and that specifically trigger when they orgasm. And, it starts with, from the point of view of a very normal, straightforward couple who discover they both have these unique powers at a very interesting time. And it kind of changes the dynamic, and then it goes out, and it combines really, really fun, dirty jokes with genuine takes and explorations on non-conformative sexuality.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And who we are, our relationship stuff, sexual issues, really, it has this wonderfully light touch that I think Matt Fraction might be the only guy who could pull that off. And with Chip Zdarsky, who's writing Spider-Man, or one of the Spider-Man books right now, but also draws his book, and they just have that again. It's another 50-50. God, one of my favorite things, and they've never brought it up, but they have this running background joke where the in-universe musical that's very popular is called Taft.
Okay.
And it's the Hamilton musical logo, but with just a fat guy in the silhouette. Everyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, look up the Hamilton music logo and then picture heavy Taft just triumphantly raising his fist into the sky.
Yeah. I probably won't be able to find it here.
It's just, I don't think they have it out because it's just like a little background thing.
I know exactly what
Except
you're
for
talking
a one-page joke where they had to combine it with the economically failing Incredible Hulk musical.
That's their Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it really has a funny, a lot of great fourth wall breaking where at one point a character's supposed to jump up on a table and sing the entirety of Fat Bottom Girls. And instead it's replaced with Matt Fraction telling the story of how they wrote a letter to Queen's reps to get the permission to get the lyrics, and they never heard back, and they, like, all this stuff happened, and they thought and then they ended up not getting it, so they went to print and did it, and then the last minute they're sticking this in because he did get a letter from Brian May.
Oh, wow.
And, had this thing and talks about how cool it is, but that's in it. Or when there's a certain scene that comes to two female characters about to have the dramatic blow up in the arc, and all of a sudden it stops, and it's Matt Fraction calling Chip, the artist, and saying, I don't want to write this. I don't want them saying these mean things to each other. And it's so reductive and weird. As Chip, who's listening on the phone, draws himself all suave, smoking a pipe, or whatever he's, and just looking cool. Fraction's flipping out about, it's dramatic, but I don't want to do it because it's I just realized I got to this point that's reinforcing things I don't like. So we're not going to show this scene, but just pretend it happened. And you know it happened, and they're mad at each other right now. You got that. Because Matt Fraction writes the best. I saw him quoted once that he writes hangout stories.
Okay.
Of just characters you want to hang out with. And that's kind of, and I think Sex Criminals is the top of that, of you just like spending time with these people and you actually do care about their weird little issues.
Nice.
And the weird sexual-based superpowers are just kind of icing on the cake to make it weird and funny.
Is it a spoiler to say that either early on or at some point one of the powers is they can stop time?
Not really. No, that's really laid out in the first issue.
Okay.
That's kind of the first power you come across.
But it's not just that. There's other powers that manifest.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll leave that because there's some really really funny ones, especially minor spoiler, hentai. The guy who's really into hentai has a unique manifestation. Let's put it that way.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's a really
Jesus.
nice guy. He just, happens to have this thing when he goes home.
There's another book that Matt Fraction's involved with that we'll probably review soon, and it's this cool thing he did with Jonathan Colton that actually you can read with a soundtrack. It's called Solid State. Go check that out if you're listening. I will probably review that on an upcoming episode. It's pretty fantastic. It's just one of those like really cool multimedia things.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize Matt Fraction was involved with sex criminals.
Oh,
so
yeah. It's a great mine for him, Casanova. Did you read Casanova?
I have not.
Ooh, Casanova will peel your lid, man. It's a read. Everyone else read Casanova too. When,
Excellent. Oh my God.
You want something? I can't even really describe Casanova. Casanova's just its own thing, man.
Who puts that out? Is that
That's another Image?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's one. I remember seeing
It's
this.
sporadic. It's something that they kind of get to every once in a while.
I have
So
a
you
few
need
of
to
those
catch
titles.
up because you can forget because it's really complex. We're talking multiple universes and realities and timelines
Oh,
and body
geez.
switching but it's delightful.
Oh, they're on. It is one of those. It's like one of those Hickman titles. It's like, oh, I'll get back to this
Yeah.
at some point.
I think
a
it has
year
to
later.
do with because he's got two different. One of the Baugh brothers, or Fabio Moon, yeah. Fabio Moon and Baugh and his other brother.
Gabriel or Gabriel. Gabriel Ba.
Yep, the brothers
That's awesome.
who take turns drawing back and forth. But
Heck
it's one of those two with the art needs. It's a team kind of thing. He doesn't just pull it. I think they all own it together somehow.
Wow. Well, I was
You can
going to
tell
ask.
I just read the books. I don't know any of the backstory on legal rights.
Well, it's funny too. Todd and I mentioned this in a previous episode. I've noticed more and more now as books come out, they're doing a lot more to like the Vision graphic novel director's cut has like half of it. I got it digitally, but I picked it up physically, and half of it's the story, but the other half, like 200 pages of just context and interviews and like all this stuff. And I feel like that's not just for bigger, Marvel or Big Two titles, but even on some of the Image stuff, like I Hate Fairyland. Scott McCloud's got, or not Scott McCloud, is that right? Scott McCloud? I Hate Fairyland's got like a bunch of like context and stuff too, and it really just, for me, gives me just so much more appreciation for like, this is why this is the form and shape it is, and this is why I enjoy drawing or writing this, and just
I
all
need
that
to be
stuff.
better about reading that kind of stuff. I know.
Well, when you first get into a story, it's like you don't want to distract yourself. You want to get into the story, but like as you kind of get on a run, it's like, okay, well, let me see this through a new lens or through a new gear, and it helps so much more. And especially with Image, like we geeked out on Image before we started recording, but like there are so many amazing artists and so many amazing writers in just the Image space right now. That's just like knowing who they are. I mean, freaking A, Landon Foss lives in Colorado Springs, and he's an occasional Image, Big Two artist as well, but image artist too. He's worked with Ailish, I can never say his name, Ailish Cote, on a lot of his stuff too. So there's just so much good stuff.
I think J. Scott Campbell still lives here.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. There's a Colorado comics scene that's a little under the. It's not quite as visible as Portland's.
Hey, we're
is.
the home of Mile High Comics, America's largest comic. Shout out. What's up, Dave?
Mile High
At the Mile
Comics
High
is
Comics
awesome.
in Lakewood. The manager, Dave, been selling me my books since I moved to Colorado in
Really?
1994.
That Lakewood store is a pretty good store. That was one of the first stores I went to too.
He kept it. When the boom and crash, and they kept that mainly in there because it's. What's up, buddy? Give him a shout out if he listens to.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, because it's tough to find a good comic store manager.
Yeah. And Colorado's got a couple of good ones. I mean, Boulder to Colorado Springs. Check out. I mean, we're sort of blessed. I mean, there's other cities that do not have the sort of abundance of riches that we do. We're not Portland, but we're that next tier down, which is great. There's so many more books and things I want to ask you about, but I want to save it for another time.
Yeah.
Another episode. I think we'll have you back on for sure to talk more about this stuff. So many good things. I was going to ask you like what your pull list is, but I think we just covered a good chunk of it. So
I'll also throw out shout outs Killer Be Killed.
Oh, wow.
Enjoying Ed Brubaker. Their stuff, that team is always enjoyable. They have a long running. They're more of a creative team that just jumps. Brubaker and Phillips. Sean Phillips, the artist.
this
they've done
book.
Criminal. Fatale was one of them. Lots of good stuff, and they just move, and they kind of run their series for a while, tell their story, and move to something else.
That's cool. I like limited series once in a while. It's a good thing.
They're long. They'll do like a 2-year run. Like it'll be 20, 30 issues or something.
It's a good 2-year run.
Yeah, Killer's what they do in miniseries or Criminal.
Oh, okay.
Criminal comes in shorter one-shots here and there, and then they'll do something long, and they always seem to want to go back to their noir stuff. But great match of artist and writer sensibilities. If you like very noir, gritty crime comics that may or may not have demons from hell.
That's cool. We're looking at I'm pulling it up right now on imagecomics.com. Yeah, it looks great.
It's a great book.
Awesome. Well, we'll call it. I guess we'll call it an episode. This one again. This is a one shot, but we'll probably do more. Man, thank you so much for coming by.
My distinct pleasure. This was wonderful.
We will do it again very, very soon. As always, you can find Coffee and Comics on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Pocket Cast, wherever you find podcasts. Just search for Coffee and Comics. We're the one with the orange album art. There is another Coffee and Comics out there that's sort of sporadic and not quite the same thing, but look for us. It's Todd and Taylor. You can find me online. I'm by Taylor Trask on Twitter and Instagram. And where can folks find you, Mike?
Basically Mark, who's my Facebook profiler. He's in charge of finding all my info. He's kind of the only guy that really knows how to get me online. Trying to decrease that online presence.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg already has seen way too much.
If you see Mike on the street, just give a wave and a hi.
Yeah, hey, what's up? I'm the tall guy.
That's right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next time on another episode of Coffee and Comics. Have a good one.